Hi, I'm Geri Alumit, Zeldes. Today we're at the farmers market and we're talking to some local farmers who we consider to be pioneers of this movement. Let's have you introduce yourself briefly. Let us know your story.
I'm David Derby. I grew up with good food
Bring me the cabbage.
and recently moved to Flint and farm with a few other people as part of the Green Stewards Urban Farm.
My name's Roxanne Adair. I'm with Flint River Farm. I also grew up in Flint, grew up growing food and haven't stopped since.
I'm Harry Ryan with Piper Green Corps from the north end of Flint, and I just trying to feed people.
My name is Joanna Lehrman. I'm co-manager of Flint River Farm with Roxanne, and I'm from New York City and moved to Flint 2.5 years ago to start an urban farm here, and we run a small CSA.
And I'm Steven Arellano. I was up until recently a grant maker program officer at the Ruth Mott Foundation, and now I'm a local food activist and kind of running my own company trying to encourage local food in Flint.
Could each of you talk about one main barrier to growing food in Flint?
It's a lot smaller than most farms, so you have to work with the lack of space on the lots and find sunny areas, find areas with good soil. It can be hard to find nice locations for gardening. The opportunity we have is there are a lot of different lots, so the Land Bank, a local nonprofit, has a lot of properties that we can adopt and garden on them, so we can find a good spot and then work with the soil to improve it.
A little more.
Squeeze straight tight.
Water and soil are, I think, the two biggest barriers that we've encountered. Most of the soil that you deal with on the vacant lots in the city is fill dirt that after they demolish the houses, they take out all of the topsoil in the basements and they replace it with, you know, just kind of your average stone yard fill dirt, which is mostly clay and giant chunks of concrete and a lot of weeds. And so getting that kind of lifeless soil into something that's living and has all kinds of delicious organic matter in it is a really long process, and it takes a really long time to build that into something that's living. Water is really hard to access if you don't have a structure on a vacant lot. Now, more than likely you don't have a spigot outside of a house. Getting a spigot in the middle of a field and hooking into the city's water main costs a whole lot of money, and most urban farmers don't have $4,000 to invest in something that's less than an acre. You know, if you could have more production to pay it back over the years, it would make more sense, but spending that much money to put up a spigot is really difficult. So we're dealing with that by renting a meter from the city that you can hook onto the fire hydrant. But even still, fire hydrants sometimes are probably, you know, a block away from where you're actually gardening. It's all about location. If you find the right spot with the right soil and the right sun, sometimes you won't have water. So it's kind of a balance.
Mr. Harry Ryan, your main issue, your main challenge in growing food?
I think my main issue is protection once you produce your produce. By me having 10 lots and wanting to go to 2 blocks, when you have your harvest, people from other areas come to take, in my area, the southern food, like purple hulls, crowded peas, because they sell $30, $40, $50 a bushel.
We have eggplant, and through here we have
the southern food, which is your purple hull, your crowder peas. That's really the highest thing.
So they'll take your high produce stuff and steal it. So with me, we're trying to build fences, put up cameras. This year we're going to build a fence all the way around. I finally got the money, so, but you lose. I try to grow enough for the thieves, but it's getting to the point I can't. So when I plant, I say, well, this is for the thieves. And no, that is the biggest problem that I've had, you know.
So how much of these thieves stolen from you in the past few years?
One year I lost maybe 30% of my crop. In one day, I went out of town, came back, 30% was gone.
And that translates into how much money for you?
With me, well, it could be 10,000. Because in urban gardening, you really don't make the value right as of yet, because in our distribution program, of course, the co-op can't sell what I grow, so we end up giving it to the needy, giving it to places who don't have food. And this year, I'm hoping to sell to restaurants, to stores, to have a better distribution of the food when it get ready. So that's been a problem.
Thank you so much. You take a bag or you have a bag?
No, if I, yeah, let me.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
There's a lot of interest in local food here at the market, but people are not used to spending what we feel like we need to charge in order to get what we made back. And so we spend a lot of our time talking to people about how we grow what we grow, how long it takes to grow it, how much labor goes into it, what we put into it in terms of organic pesticides. And so we're trying to get the price for it that we need in order to keep doing it. One way that we've found to, and what we're really excited about, one way we've found to minimize that risk is the direct relationship with our consumers through the CSA. And so we get that money up front, and we're able to not worry about trying to make the money over the season. We're just having to worry about being able to produce for them and give it to them every week. We've had a lot of inquiries from people that are looking to have our food in restaurants, or have our food in grocery stores, or have our food in new programs. But us selling wholesale at this small of a scale doesn't totally make sense, because we can't get the real value for it yet.
For me, it's an overall cultural shift needs to happen, and make it about the people who are doing the work, right? Because I've watched these guys farm and seen the struggles that they encounter, and you know, it's incredible, and everybody would ask you, well, you know, why the hell do you do that? You know, you don't stand a chance of making any money. You know, you're like trying to get your shovel through concrete dirt, and you know, why would you do it? But it's, you know, I really see the nobility of it, and it seems like when I watch urban farming happening in a community in Flint, I see the change not only with the people doing the work and the food that's produced, but in the surrounding community. I've seen nothing else in my decade of working in community development in Flint that seems to really change a mindset in a neighborhood, and people start getting curious and start asking questions, and maybe roll up their sleeves and start helping, but all those kinds of things. But you know, for me, it's really just starting off with understanding where we're at and thinking of changing this food system to a more localized version, so that, you know, we can kind of reap all those different benefits.
We're gonna get some people that stand here in between the plastic and the hoop house, and as it goes up and over, the people here can see it's kind of folded up. We're gonna help unfold it, and also make sure that it doesn't get caught, you know, on anything like this and start to tear.
I mean, I can speak for Joanna and I. We live in 2 separate houses. We have 2 separate sets of bills, and it's just the 2 of us working on the farm. And we have 2 acres, 1 hoop house. And I can say right now, I mean, if we did nothing but work outside from sunup to sundown every day, I think we might be able to support one of us all year round and still have a okay, normal life, not really living in poverty. But it would be really difficult for us on only 2 acres with only the 2 of us and no extra hands and not really any equipment. It would be really hard for us to support ourselves. We still have a lot of work to do, like a lot of work to do. And we only have a 18-inch tiller. And so the ground's pretty hard and compacted, and we're supposed to be planting like in 2 weeks in this ground. We're behind.
It's just the 2 of you?
And it's just the 2 of us,
okay.
Yeah. I think that if we could have animals, even just chickens or something like a milking goat or something, if we had some kind of an addition other than vegetables, and kind of, I mean, we diversify pretty well. We have bees, so we got honey production. We tap maple trees, so we have maple syrup, but I mean, it's hard to make it. And I mean, even all across the country, whether you're in the city or in a rural area, farmers are some of the poorest people. I mean, most farmers live under the poverty rate, which is ironic because we feed the entire world, you know? If it weren't for people growing your food, most people wouldn't be alive because most people don't really know what it takes to grow food. But I mean, no matter where you live, it's difficult to make it as a farmer. You work long hours, you work really hard, and you do what you can for yourself. But I think if we had some more land and if we could afford to hire some hands, we could probably, I mean, we're going to try to make it. That's why we're doing it.
The farmers that I know, especially the diversified farmers and the farm families, have some of the best lives of people I know. They're happy. They get to work outside at their own pace, in rhythm with the world around them, and they get to eat good food and have community. It's really a great way to live.
How long do you plan to devote yourself to this movement?
I plan on experimenting for the rest of my life. We grow 35 different types of vegetables and fruits right now, and we plan on expanding that, selling to 4, 5, 6 different types of markets just to make sure that you're not just concentrating all of your attention on one, and then if that fails, then you fail as well. But in terms of, figuring out the right price, in terms of figuring out the right relationship with our customers, in terms of figuring out what customers want, in terms of where we're going to be doing this, how many hoop houses we have, I mean, we'll be experimenting as long as we're doing this. I don't feel like we've ever actually gotten to the point of being able to say, all right, well, we've achieved everything. I hope to not get to that point ever.
I don't think any farmer ever gets to that point.
Yeah, I mean, as a business, we've given ourselves about 3 to 5 years also to figure out, how can we make money on this, and it still is year to year right now. To figuring out whether or not we need to get second jobs, whether or not we need to, cut down on what we're spending and in other aspects of our lives, whether or not we need to seek funding from one place versus another place, whether or not, what percentage of our time we're devoting to being at the farm versus, being somewhere else to support our lifestyle. So we're still in that phase right now, and I expect to be in that phase over the next 2 years.
I was like, oh my God.
I'm a business person, so I'm not looking to make it from my location, but what I'm doing is making other groups form and have other gardens, and I'm aiming towards having a North End food market within the next 2 years. Because I know that a city the size of Flint can't only make it on one market. There at least could be 4. So it is, to me, in the pioneer days of marketing, I take a look at it, Detroit, look how many marketplaces they have. Oakland, California, there's a lot. So I'm banking on the fact that to get the experience, to develop a corporation of urban farmers, to have a marketplace that improves the level of food, and of course, be able to set the price and get what you put into it, because when you get a better quality of food, the people can come to the site, they know that you care, they see what you're putting in the product, then I think you can achieve that.
I don't really know how to do anything but grow food. I mean, my parents grew up growing food, and they did what they could for themselves. We always canned what we ate. I grew up doing that. I still do that. Last night I made like 23 jars of mulberry jam and baked a bunch of bread. And I mean, it's a way of life. And like David said, like being a farmer and living the life of growing your own food and eating this amazing food that you can't buy at a supermarket. You can't buy a tomato that you just went out in your backyard and picked. You can't buy something that great. And there's some kind of like, it may be strange, but it's some kind of weird connection that you have, just like he said, with everything that goes on around you, with the weather, with the soil, with the animals, with the bees, with everything that's kind of a part of this big, greater scheme of things. And I love that. I feed off of that. That's just, it's something that gives me so much enjoyment in my life that I don't really know that I ever want to live without that. And even if I don't farm in the city, we're going to be here for a while, but even if I don't farm in the city, I'm going to be growing food my whole life, because that's the life to live, you know?
We talk about how poor farmers are, and farmers have been farming at a loss in this county for the past 30 or 40 years, selling mostly commodity crops, you know, corn, wheat, and soy. But there is a deep interest among existing farmers who have land, who have scale, and can produce to some degree for the local market vegetables that are healthier and use healthier means of production. But they can't make that switch. They'll make more money off vegetables if we had the local market for them. But until we kind of capitalize on the movement that's kind of emanating from Flint for this area, those farmers can't make the switch and grow completely for the local market and make better money, and maybe not even have to have second jobs like most farmers in this area all have second jobs. They farm and then they go to their, you know, they go to their second job to pay the bills also. But creating that economic shift for a local economy is, you know, kind of the chance to do that builds on the work that happens in the city. And, you know, maybe you have an urban farm like Flint River Farm, or what Dave's doing in your neighborhood, or like what Harry's doing like in your neighborhood. And wouldn't it be great to have a neighborhood where you could walk up the street and get some produce, you know, oh, you know, I'm going to go make a salad, or I'm going to go get some vegetables and roast them, or something like that, right? But, you know, to have all the food we need to have that connection with the hinterland, the rural areas. You know, we got to figure out what to do with the suburbs. And, you know, like the suburbs developed as the, you know, the unsustainable way, unless you're like, you know, oil-based economy kind of thing. But, you know, that the economic shift to a local economy based on food, like to me, in a place like Michigan where, you know, we have the most valuable resource of water, into the future, that is going to be a, you know, a strong local economy that other things can be built upon. But, you know, it starts here, but it's not the answer for all of our food needs. But it is some of our food needs, but it's also our education. And like, I have learned so much from all of these guys about food myself and how to grow it and the work that it takes, that I have so much respect for them. And if we had that kind of culture in this area, then, you know, that blend between city and county, city people would start to understand what a farmer goes through and the life that they lead. And if they had a piece of that by working on their own land, they would understand not only what Dave was saying about connection to the world around you and a sense of community and a richer life that's not based on money, but based on quality of life. city people would understand and respect that farmer in a whole different way. Like, people in Flint, you know, like, they're more comfortable on concrete than dirt. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They, you know, they don't understand. It's like this separation. So yeah, it's just a really important point of like reconnecting a city that has had this trajectory of fragmentation and social division that has evolved for the last 100 years or more.
To me, we're in the dark ages. It's time for a change. It really, I think, if you look around the country, and I think that's what's not happening. They're not looking at what other states are doing. It's past time for not to be so hard. You know, you're gonna work hard and then you gotta spend $15,000 to just try to feed the community. You know, I think this group is the core of the change. That's why I'm so elated about this group, because it's so many barriers, like the people, the land, the law. I mean, it's one fight after another fight after another fight. So if you don't love it, you won't do it. So I know they love it. And that's why I'm excited about, I know I won't change, but there is barriers. That's a whole program by itself, talking about what they will allow. Mm-hmm. It seems to vary to me. I was told that it had to be a garage, and I had to build it with plans. So I went and had architect papers drew up to build a greenhouse that looked like a garage, to invent something that would not have a problem. So right. So I mean, yes, that's still an area that you're right at the pioneer stage of it right now. Yeah. Now, from what I'm hearing, you can have one, but I've seen stop work. I've seen the things you do in it be controlled. So looking at the county, they don't have those barriers. They just do what they want to do. They've got animals, you know, and don't mention animals. When I watched the go through the council with animals, it was a total movement against it, because all they kept talking about was the chicken making noise. So nothing positive was looked at. It was just, I don't want to wake up with a chicken in the morning.
Right. And you got to understand, Geri, that it like really defies your basic reason to think about like this outdated ordinance that's getting enforced. But you drive down Philadelphia Street, right? This is a stone's throw from the world's largest brownfield, or one of the world's largest brownfields. Vacant houses all up and down the street. Here's this, you know, retired woman who is working with the youth in the neighborhood, wants to put up a hoop house and run a program to keep them out of trouble, to teach them about gardening. And they say, no, you can't do that on that vacant lot. And it's like, you know, like what? Like it just defies reason. And you know, these ordinances are, you know, a half a century old, at a time when formed when the city was still booming and General Motors was, you know, had 80,000 employees. I just wonder, like, are you not taking the time to see what you're saying no to? Or, like, there just is that gap, you know? It's like, how do you break through that? You know, it's almost, we're at a point now where you look around the city, it's like, can you afford not to any longer? You know, it doesn't mean that suddenly we're gonna have a huge tax base. But you know, if there is a notable portion of the community that wants to make less money but live a higher quality of life in this city with fewer city services that cost less and keep an eye on their neighborhood for you, you know, why wouldn't you want to do that? You know, and why wouldn't you take the time to, even if you don't have the personnel to develop programs and funnel money towards it or whatever, all this has happened without the city participating in it up till this point. So even just a friendly, like, hey, nice to see you, how's it going over there, might be nice, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, they do have the challenges, but you know, they're gonna have to take some risks that step out of, you know, a lot of the classic way of thinking about the development of a city and what a city should look like. You know, when you look at a city through the lens of urban farming and local food, Flint is actually it's like we've already dealt with all the problems. We don't have to worry about population control like, you know, Mumbai, because everybody left. So we don't have a super dense city, and maybe that's a good thing, right? We don't have to worry about all kinds of things that were problems, and if we can, when we talk at conferences and around the country, people are like, boy, we wish we had your problems. We wish we could, you know, London would say that, Amsterdam would say that, Johannesburg would say, you know, gosh, if we could start from scratch and build in, you know, local food and green belts and have, you know, a sustainable infrastructure in our city, you know, we would love that. And we have that opportunity here, and it's just not being seized upon because it's, you know, it's not everybody's bag, it's not their thing or something. But yeah, I think the city, you know, I think that they see it and they're coming aboard, and maybe it took the hard work of these guys and a lot of the other people associated with this movement to really say it loud enough and show it on the ground.
And we are out of time ourselves, so I want to thank you for joining us this morning to talk about some of what's going right and what's going wrong in terms of the urban farming movement in Flint.